All right, welcome back. We are on Unit 6 of our ACT Prep, Plane Geometry Topics. Today, Day 6, we're going to talk about general properties of triangles. So we have similar figures, similar triangles. Similar figures have the same shape, but not necessarily the same size. Corresponding angles of similar triangles are congruent. So when we look at this, okay, I see that we have the 40 degrees here. Okay, and they've got to tell me, but if they tell me that triangle ABC is congruent or similar, I should say, similar to triangle XYZ, then what that tells me is anytime, and again, you got to look for this notation. They got to tell you the order that the variables go in, because what this means then is that angle A is equal to angle X. It means that angle B is equal to angle Y, and we have angle C that's equal to angle Z. Okay, when you have similar triangles, it's guaranteed, this has been proven for you, that corresponding angles of similar triangles are congruent, which means equal. So I can figure out what angle A is. Angle A, because the three angles of a triangle have to add up to 180, so angle A has to be 180, take away 40, take away 65, which makes angle A equal to 75 degrees. And what that means then, if I know these two triangles are similar, then corresponding angles are equal. So if this is 40, this is in the same place, then that has to be 40. So angle Y is 40, which those are already given. All right, angle A I just figured out is 75 degrees. Since X is in the same position, then this angle has to be, angle X has to be 75 degrees. And since C and Z are in the same position, then whatever C is, Z has to be. So since C is 65 degrees, then Z is 65 degrees. Okay? The other thing about similar triangles that we know is that the lengths of corresponding sides of similar triangles are not equal, but they're proportional, which means the ratio of their sides has to be the same. So again, when I tell you triangle ABC is similar to triangle XYZ, what I'm telling you, and what I like to do, they like to name their sides. They can name this side AB, and they can name this side BC, and they can name this side AC, and I really hate it when they do that, because then you can jack up the order and put those letters in opposite orders, and it kind of jacks everybody up. So I like my lowercase letters. And the rule is when you label your vertexes, with capital letters, and the side opposite, in other words, if this is angle A, then the side opposite is little a, side A. So if this is angle B, then this would be side B, and if this is angle C, then this would be side C. Same thing over here. Angle X makes this side X, angle Y makes this side Y, and angle Z makes this side Z. And what proportional means is that the sides that are in the corresponding positions, they're not equal to each other, but they're proportional, which means their ratios are equal. So what this tells me is that side A is proportional to side X, and that has to equal, switch colors here, side B and its ratio to, so little b to little y, that ratio has to be the same, which has to be the same as the ratio of C to Z, because they're in corresponding positions. So if I fill in what I know little a is 72. I know that little x is 45. Okay, for my b, I don't know little b, and I know that little y is 43. For c, I don't know little c, over little z is 52. And that these proportions have to be true, because this has been proven that the lengths of corresponding sides are proportional to each other. So what you do to find missing sides is you solve proportions. And you can start between any two you want. If I start with these two, Proportions is the product of the extremes, so 72 times 43 has to equal the product of the means, which is 45 times b. If you do 72 times 43, you get 3096 equals 45b. So to get b alone, I'm going to divide by 45, and I get b equals 68.8. Okay, now I got to figure out c. You have two choices. If I try and just use these, the last two ratios, if I cross multiply right now, I have two letters I don't know, so that's not going to work. Now if I take my b and I plug it in, because now I know b is 68.8, then I can use it. And that's absolutely fine. You can do that. Me, I don't trust, well, I should trust myself, but what if I screwed up on making b? I don't want to, if I use it again, then that answer is automatically going to be wrong. So I like to use the one that had both numbers given to me and the one I'm trying to find. And you'll get, even if you did it with these two, you'll get the same answer. But I like using the one I started with. So I have 72 over 45 equals c over 52. So if I solve this one, the product of the extremes would be 72 times 52 has to equal the product of my means, which is 45 times c. 72 times 52 is 3744 equals 45c. To get c alone, I'm going to divide by 45, and I get c equals 83.2. Okay, so now I know all the sides. B is 68.8 and C is 83.2. And if you looked at each of those ratios, 72 divided by 45, whatever that comes out to be, will be the same as 68.8 divided by 43, which will be the same as 83.2 divided by 52. Check it out. Those ratios will all be equal. They have to be. Okay? Alright, so you try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 4. So it says in the figure below, triangle ABC and DEF are similar triangles. How many units long is DE? Alright, first of all, DE is little f. Okay? So since they gave me this information, I know that little a corresponds to little d, little b corresponds to little e, and little c corresponds to little f. So let's see what I know. I know that this is little a, this is little b, this is little c. So I know that little a is 7, I know that little b is 11, and I know that little c is 8. So I know the tops of all my fractions. Let's see what I know on the bottom. I don't know little d. Little e is 5.5, and I don't know little f. Okay, so which one do I solve? Well, which one do they want? They want DE, which is little f. So since this is what I want, I'm going to use these two ratios to solve my proportion. So I would have the product of the extremes would be 11 times f equals the product of my means, which is 5.5 times 8. That gives me 11f equals 44. Divide by 11, and I get f equals 4. Okay? Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. Alright, they tell me that XRK is similar to STV, and both triangles are scalene. Which of the following statements is not true? Well, from this information, as far as angles go, I know that angle X has to equal angle S. I know that angle R has to equal angle T. And I know that angle K has to equal angle V. So let's check the angles. This says angle X equals angle S. That's true. This says angle R equals angle V, which is false, because angle R equals angle T. So we found the one that's not true. And in a real SAT, I would stop. I mean, if there's only one answer, I found the one that's not true, so don't waste time on doing the others. But because this is a learning practice problem. I'm going to go through the rest and show you why they are true. It says XR and ST are corresponding sides. Well, all you have to do, if they're using these letters instead of the little letters for the sides, all right, is I know that, again, if you look at the original, XRK, similar to STV, all you got to do is look at the order in which they wrote them. XR would be from this to this. And so if it's the same in the other one, which is the first to the second, then we're good. So that's true. Okay, as far as my proportion goes, okay, this one is, let me see if this is the one that they did it on. Yeah. Okay, when I do my proportions, like I always say that little x corresponds to little s, and that ratio is r over t, which is the same as little k over little v. Okay, you can also write this. You could say that, you can write these sideways. So you could say that x is to r just as s is to t. So you can go sideways if you want, as long as you do it in the same order. Well, that's what these goofballs are doing. All right, so again, if I just look at the letters, because they didn't give me the lowercase, let me erase the last one. Kx would be from there to here. So that has to correspond either on the bottom or across to Vs, and it does. So those two correspond. And then check the other one out. RK would be from the second to the third, so the bottom of this one has to be second to third, and it is. So that's true. And then they want to know, is this true? Well, I'm going to make up numbers. Let's see that I made angle X 5. That means angle S has to be 5. Let's say that I made K, I don't know, 3. Then that means angle V would have to be 3. So if I plug those in, they want angle X, which is 5, plus angle K, which is 3. And on this side, they want angle V, which is 3, plus angle S, which is 5. That's true, because 8 equals 8. So this is true. Again, once you found it, I wouldn't have bothered, but again, learning from this. All right, some practice. It says, what is true about corresponding angles of similar triangles? They are congruent, which is a fancy word for equal. 2, what is true about corresponding sides of similar triangles? They are not equal, but they are proportional. Okay. 3 says, are these two triangles similar? Explain why or why not. Well, if the angles are equal, then I know that the triangles are similar. So if I find the missing angle here, which would be 180, take away 110, take away 30, which leaves 40 degrees. If I find the missing angle here, that's going to be 180 minus 110 minus 40, which is 30. And you can see that corresponding angles are equal. So yes, these are similar triangles because corresponding angles are equal. Okay? All right. Oops. Skipping. All right. 4 says, what is the length of Z? 5, what is the length of X? C, what is they want to know all the angles. So I need to set up my angles and my sides. For my angles, using this as my guide, I know that angle A equals angle X, angle B equals angle Y, and angle C equals angle Z. So I know A is 30, I know B is 50, and I can figure out C. C is going to be 180 minus 30 minus 50, which is going to be 100 degrees. So what that tells me is that angle X equals 30 degrees, angle Y equals 50 degrees, and angle Z equals 100 degrees. Okay, so we've got our angles. So what is the measure of angle C? 100 degrees. What is the measure of angle X? 30 degrees. Z, 100 degrees. Y, 50 degrees. Alright, so now they want the other two sides, they want z and x. Well, from this information, I can also say that little a corresponds to little x, and little b corresponds to little y, and, sorry, I'm changing colors here, little c corresponds to little z. So again, if I plug in my information, I know this is little a, this is little x, so little a is 20, little x is little x, and little b is over here, so that's 25, little y is right here, which is 58, and then I need little c, which is 35, over little z, which is little z. So they want x and z, so to find x, I'm going to solve these two, or solve this proportion, which would give me 20 times 58 has to equal x times 25. That's going to give me 1160 equals 25x. Divide by 25, divide by 25, and I get x equals 46.4. So there's x. Alright, and to get z, I'm going to solve this one. So that would be 25 times z equals, this way would be 58 times 35. This would be 25z equals 58 times 35 is 2030. Divide by 25, and z equals 81.2. Okay, pretty cool. Alright, more of the same. They're telling me that QRS is similar to DEF. So angle Q is equal to angle D, angle R is equal to angle E, and angle S is equal to angle S. Well, I know that Q is 62 degrees. I know that S is 41 degrees. To figure out R, I just have to do 180, take away 62, take away 41, and I get 77 degrees. So R is 77. Well, what that means is, since Q is 62, then D is 62. Since R is 77, then E is 77. And since S is 41, then F is 41. So we got our angles. So angle R is 77 degrees, angle E is 77 degrees, angle D is 62 degrees, and angle F is 41 degrees. Alright, and now they're going to want the two missing sides, EF, which would be little d, so they're looking for little d, and DF, which would be little e, so they're looking for little e. Alright, and because of this statement, I know that little q corresponds to little d, little r is proportional to little e, and little s is proportional to little f. So if I plug in what I know that little q is 16 over little d is little d. I know that little r is 18 over little e is little e. And I know that little s, which is 12, corresponds to little f, which is 6. Okay, so I put the pieces in where I know. And then I want to try and solve this. Well, if I try this one, it won't work yet because I have two I don't knows. So I can't do that one yet, which means I got to try another pair. So I could do this pair, because there's only one letter. So that would give me 18 times 6 equals E times 12. Okay, and that would give me 108 equals 12E. Divide by 12, and I get E equals 9. So there's DF. Alright, and then they want to do to find D. Well, again, if I try and use these, I could if I plugged 9 in, or I could use these two. And I'm going to use these two since it doesn't mean using an answer I got myself. So I'm going to solve 16 over D equals 12 over 6. So this way would give me 16 times 6 equals D times 12. 16 times 6 is 96 equals 12D. Divide by 12 and I get D equals 8. Okay? Alright, more of the same. Alright, so we have KLM similar to TUV, which means angle K is equal to angle T, angle L is equal to angle U, and angle M is equal to angle V. So, I know that angle K is 75 degrees, that angle M is 30 degrees. To figure out L, I just take 180 minus 75 minus 30, and I get 75 degrees, which makes, okay, so I know those three, and what that means is that since K is 75 and T corresponds, then T is 75. Since U corresponds to L and L is 75, then U is 75. And since M is 30 and V corresponds to M, V is 30. Okay, so there's my angle. So what's the measure of angle L? 75 degrees. Of T, 75 degrees. Of U, 75 degrees. Of V, 30 degrees. And now they're going to want the other two sides. So again, because of this statement, I can say little k corresponds to little t, just as little l corresponds to little u, just as little m corresponds to little v. So this is little k, which I don't know, corresponds to little t, which I don't know. And then we have L, which is here, and I don't know that, over U, which is 8. And that has to equal my third ratio, which is little m, 12, over little v, 4. Well, I can't solve this one because there's 3 I don't knows, but I can solve this one because there's only 2 I don't knows. So if I solve that one, I have L times 4 would be, well, L times 4 equals, this way would be 8 times 12. That gives me, where am I at? 4L equals 96. Divide by 4, and L equals 24. KM, that's little l. So KM, that's little l, is 24. So even if I replace the L, if I try and do this cross product, again, it's not going to work because I have 2 I don't knows. And even if I use these two, it still isn't going to work because I have 2 I don't knows. Huh, what a conundrum. Well, I happen to notice that, oh look, my base angles are equal. That means I have an isosceles triangle. So whatever this leg is, which we said was 24, that makes this leg. And whatever this leg is, again, base angles are equal, so whatever this leg is, this leg has to be. So little k has to be 24, and little t has to be 8. And what are they wanting? They want LM. LM is this side, which is k. So they want k, which is 24. Cool? Alright, if ABC below is similar to DEF, how much longer is the perimeter of DEF than the perimeter of ABC? Well, to find perimeter means I need to add up all the sides, which means I need to know all the sides. Alright, so I'm going to, because of this statement, I know that little a corresponds to little d, which is equal to little b corresponding to e, which is equal to little c corresponding to little s. So if I label my triangles, this would be little a, which corresponds to little d. So I have 15 over 24. Then I have little b, which is right here, that's 35, over little e, which I don't know. And that equals little c, which is right here, I don't know it, over little f, which is 40. So I can solve these two to find e, or solve that proportion to find e. So I'd have 15 times e equals 24 times 35. That gives me 15e equals 840. Divide by 15 and I get e equals 56. So I got 56 here. Alright, now I have to find c. Again, I can use whatever I want to, but I don't want to use the letter I got, so I'm going to use the first and the last. So I'm going to do 15 over 24 equals c over 40. So I have 15 times 40 has to equal 24 times c. That's 600 has to equal 24c. Divide by 24 and c equals 25. So I got this side is 25. So now I'm going to find the perimeter of triangle ABC. That's this guy. So it would be 25 plus 15 plus 35, which is 108 units. Sorry, that is not, my bad. My perimeter of ABC is 75. Sorry. My perimeter of triangle DEF would be 56 plus 40 plus 24, which is 120. So they want to know how much longer is this perimeter than this perimeter. Well, how that you're finding the difference. So 120 take away 75 makes it 45 units longer. Okay? Sorry, didn't mean to switch that so fast. Alright? Okay, and this one says, if PQR below is similar to YXR, what are the perimeter and area of each triangle? Okay, this one is kind of, I don't like triangles drawn inside of other triangles. They're just kind of hard to see. Alright? So if you look at the little triangle, I'm going to call, well, let's see. Let's look at the big triangle first. The big triangle. I'm going to call this little r1. And in the little triangle, I'm going to call it little r2. Because they both share that r angle. Okay? In the big triangle, from here to here would be little p. But in the little triangle, hold on, I'm going to quit switching colors. From here to here, which corresponds as little y. Okay? And then we have this, which would be little q, corresponds to, should use different colors, little x. Okay? So, to get the perimeter, I need the sides. Alright, so we know from this statement that little p corresponds to little y, and little q corresponds to little x, and little r1 corresponds to little r2. So if I plug in those numbers, let's see, little p, I don't know, corresponds to little y, I don't know. Just as little q, which is 36, corresponds to little x, which is 20. Just as r1, which I don't know, corresponds to r2, which is 15. So I have to figure these ones out. So Oh, we're going to run into problems here again because look, I have two I don't know is in the same fraction. But if you notice, both of my triangles, sorry, I'm trying to figure out a good color. Both of my triangles are right triangles. And in this little right triangle right here, I know the two legs. So I can figure out little y if I do leg squared plus leg squared equals little y squared. All right, so I have 15 squared is 225 plus 20 squared is 400 equals y squared. So I have y squared equals 625 square root and little y equals 25. So now I know little y is 25. And now it'll work. Okay, so if I want to find little p, I'm going to solve these two. So I'm going to do p times 20 equals, this way would be 25 times 36. So this would give me 20p equals 900. Divide by 20, and I get p equals 45. Okay, so I know p now is 45. I got to get little r1. So if I solve these two, that's going to give me 36 times 15 equals 20 times r1. So that's going to give me 540 equals 20 r1. Divide by 20, and little r1 is equal to 27. Okay, so now I've got all my sides. They want perimeter and area. Well, if I start with triangle ABC, triangle ABC, my perimeter is going to be, ABC, PQR. Okay, if I do the big triangle, my perimeter is going to be P is 45, Q is 36, and little r is 27. And that gives me a perimeter of 108 units. My area is length times width divided by 2. So my length of the big triangle is 36 times the height of my big triangle is 27 divided by 2. That gives me 972 divided by 2, which gives me an area of 486 units squared. So there's the perimeter and area of triangle PQR. And then they want the perimeter and area of triangle YXR. Well, my perimeter is going to be the sides of the little one, which is 20 plus 25 plus 15, which gives me a perimeter of 60 units. My area is going to be my length, which is 20, times my height, which is 15, divided by 2. That gives me 300 divided by 2, which gives me an area of 150 units squared. So there's perimeter and area of that triangle. Okay? Alright, you try this one, hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got C. It says in the figure below, triangle ABC is similar to DEF. What is the length of DF? So they're wanting little e. Well, again, because of this statement, I know that little a corresponds to little d, little b corresponds to little e, little c corresponds to little f, and they're proportional. So I need E, which is in the same place as little b. So this is little b, this is little a, this is little c, little e, little f, little d. Alright, so let's plug in what we know and figure out what ratio is going to get us the answer. So I know that A is 2.5, little d is d. For B, I know that little b is 2, and little e is, I don't know. And the last one, I know that little c, which is 1, corresponds to little f, which is 1.5. Alright, I'm wanting e. It's because they want df. So I'm going to use this ratio or proportion because there's my e that I want to know. So 2 times 1.5 equals e times 1. So that's 3 equals e. There you go. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got G. It says if QRS is similar to XYZ, which choice gives corresponding sides? Alright, for F, I'm just going to write QRS similar to XYZ. All you got to do is check the order of whatever they're giving you. Okay, so QR would be here, and RQ would be here. Well, that's silly because those are the same side. So that's not corresponding sides. Alright, so that's false. When I do it again, QRS similar to XYZ, and I check this order, I have R to S and Y to Z. It's second to third in the first, second to that's true. Those would be corresponding sides. So you could stop because you found it, but again, in a real ACT, I would not check the other ones. You already found it. But again, just as a little learning experience, let's check the other 3. So if I do QRS similar to XYZ and I check QS and XY, QS is first to third, XY is first to second. That doesn't work because it's not in the same positions. Those are not corresponding. So that's out, false. Do again, QRS similar to XYZ. SR would be third to second, and SQ would be third to first. Those are in the same triangle. They're not corresponding sides. That's false. And my last one, QRS, similar to XYZ. RQ, second to first. ZX, third to first. Wrong order. Those are not corresponding. So that's the only one that's true. Alright, try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got 145. Alright, it says in the figure below, ABC is similar to QRS. What is the sum of the measures of angle B and angle Q? So we just want angles, we don't have to worry about sides. This statement tells me that angle A is equal to angle Q, angle B is equal to angle R, and angle C is equal to angle S. So if I plug in what I know that A is 27, which makes Q 27. The other thing they gave me was S is 35. So over here, S is 35, which means C is 35. And to figure out any of the missing ones, to figure out B, I can say B is going to be 180 minus 27 minus 35, which is going to give me angle B equals 118 degrees. So that's 118, which makes angle R 118. And it wants the sum of the measures of angle B, which is 118, and angle Q, which is 27. So 118 plus 27 is 145 degrees. Okay. Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. And hopefully you got J. In the figure below, DEF is similar to XYZ. Which of the following statements is false? It says the measure of angle Z is 42 degrees. Well, since F corresponds to Z, last, that's true. Okay, XZ is equal to 1.5. I don't know, but I'm going to check my angle ones first in case I get lucky, which I don't, but if you don't pretend you didn't know that. Okay, measure of angle X is 41 degrees. That would be true because D and X correspond, so if D is 41, then so is X, so that's true. Check my last angle one. The measure of angle Y is 97. Well, I don't know. I'm going to have to do Y is 180 minus 42 minus 41, and I get I did it somewhere. 180 minus 97. So that's true. Well, crap, because the sides are harder. Well, not harder, but they take longer. Alright, so I got to figure out what the sides are. Well, this statement tells me that little d corresponds to little x, little e corresponds to little y, and little f corresponds to little z. Alright, so this is little d, this is little e, this is little f, this is little x, this is little y, and this is little z. So if I plug in what I know, little d is 5 over little x, I don't know. Little e is 6 over little y, I don't know. Little f is 4 over little z is 1. Alright, and let's see. If I want to check this one, it says xz is 1.5. xz is little y, so they're looking for little y here. Well, to solve for little y, I could do this proportion. So 6 times 1 equals y times 4. That's 6 equals 4y. Divide by 4. I get y equals 3/2, which is 1.5. So that's true, which means this one has to be false. Okay. Alright. Try this one. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. Alright, so again, in the figure, they want the sum of AC plus BD. Well, how in the heck am I going to get those? Well, if I could figure out, I know the whole side here. If I could figure out this much, I could subtract it from 8, and then I'd know this much. Same thing down here. To figure out this much, if I know this is 5, and I can subtract this off, then I'll know what's left. And then I can add them together. So, I'm going to have to figure out my sides, which tells me, or this statement tells me, that little a corresponds to little c, little b corresponds to little d, little e corresponds to little e. And we'll call this one E1 and this one E2, because you want the big over the small. Okay, so let's look at what we know. This whole thing would be little a, which is 5, over little c, which would be this. I don't know. Okay, then we've got little b, which would be all of this, which is 8, over little d, which I don't know. And then we have E1, which is 3, over E2, which is 2. So, I got to figure out my sides. To figure out D, I'm going to do this. So, 8 times 2 has to equal D times 3. So, I have 16 equals 3D. Divide by 3, and D equals 16/3. And just leave it a fraction, and don't make it mixed yet. Might as well wait till the end. Okay, so then I'm going to pick this one and this one. So I have 5 over C equals 3 over 2. Cross multiply. 5 times 2 has to equal C times 3. So I get 10 equals 3C. Divide by 3. And C equals 10/3. So now, to figure out what BD is, just this section, I'm going to take all of this side, which is 5, and I'm going to subtract off this little part right here, which is little c. So I'm going to take 5 minus 10/3. I used a calculator, and then Math Enter entered my answer, and I got 5/3. Okay, so then if I figure out what AC is, just to figure out this, I'm going to take the whole length, which is 8, and subtract off little d, which was 16/3. Use a calculator, type it in, Math Enter enter, you get 8/3. So then they want the sum of AC and BD. So if I add AC and BD, that's 8/3 plus 5/3, which is 13/3, which is 4 1/3. 3 goes into 13 4 times. Take away 12 leaves 1. That's 4 and a third. Okay? And that finishes up our day 6. So I will see you next time for day 7.